The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tony Messia of the Charlotte Ledger, and you're listening to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger at thecharlotteledger.com. Today, I'm talking with John Loyack. He's the Vice President of Economic Development for the North Carolina Community College System. But before we get started, I want to mention that this episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is sponsored by Child Care Search. You know, finding childcare is more than checking a box. It's peace of mind. And for more than 40 years, Child Care Search, a service of Child Care Resources, Inc., has helped families find safe, nurturing, quality child care options. Their free referral service connects you to licensed programs that fit your family's needs. Visit findchildcarenc.org or call 1-888-600-1685 to talk to a child care navigator today. Community colleges are in many cases on the front lines of the economy because they work closely with businesses to figure out what kind of workers are needed. And so John and I are going to talk today about what the hot jobs are these days, which if you're somebody contemplating switching careers or a parent of someone entering the workforce, that might be nice to know. And we're going to talk about what he's hearing from employers about business conditions and the job market. And we're going to talk about this potential trend toward reshoring, the move toward building back up American manufacturing. That's obviously been a priority of the new administration in Washington. John, thanks for joining me on the Charlotte Ledger Podcast.
Very happy to be here.
So, I saw a statistic the other day I wanted to ask you about. It said that the enrollment in two-year colleges in North Carolina was up by a lot. It was up 8.3% in the spring of 2025 compared to a year earlier. That's higher than the national average. Why is that?
So one of the reasons I think it is because we have the community college system that offers a wide variety of pathways. There are for any individual, everyone's path is going to be different. There could be somebody who's coming in and looking to pursue a two-year degree, kind of the traditional path. I finished high school and now I'm ready to go on and work on my associate's degree. There could be somebody who's coming in and they're looking for a job, very good paying job at a great new company in the area, but they need a certificate. They can come in and get that certificate program. And then, of course, there's the programs that we do with businesses themselves. And so through our economic development program, we bring businesses into community college campuses all over the state every single day. Businesses who are wondering about customized training programs and they want to do leadership and continuous improvement and safety training. They're doing those things on community colleges. Small business owners are coming on. Entrepreneurs who have a dream, who want to know how to start the business, are coming on campus. Apprenticeships. We are the state apprenticeship agency. And so every community college in the state is a place where you can find out as a business owner how to get a registered apprenticeship program off the ground. And so all of those pathways give people fantastic insight into what's going on at the community colleges. And that's one of those things that is driving it. But I would say there's something bigger going on. There's been a debate about student debt that's gone on for a very long time. I can tell you, both of my children did pursue the four-year university path. But my son, when we talked about what his plan was and where he wanted to go, he told me one of his number one goals was to graduate debt-free. He's grown up in a world where that's what he's heard ever since he was very young. His mother and I have certainly tried to ensure him that we were going to help him achieve these dreams, whatever they were. But he had just heard this since he was very young. And so I think all of those are things that are driving people there. Final thing I would say is that there's a lot of great opportunities. And so over the last 5 years, literally going back to the pandemic, businesses have been telling folks like me, they need qualified workforce. That's one thing that's been constant. We know that unemployment is still very low, under 3% statewide. And it's one of those things that businesses can't get enough workforce. And so folks know we can go to the community college and pick up those skills so I can get that good paying job.
It's interesting to hear you say that because, I've covered business in North Carolina for a while. And one of the things that I've always heard consistently, whether it's talking to people in the construction industry or in manufacturing, is that they sort of not quite resent, but they don't like the idea that everybody should be steered toward a four-year college and that some people are just not really cut out to work in an office, and that there are a lot of great jobs out there still. You work with your hands, you're outside, it's more of a technical education, and not everybody needs to follow this kind of cookie cutter path of going to a 4-year college and taking on a whole bunch of debt. Do you think that's kind of changing? Is the word getting out on that?
I do, absolutely. And I think the other thing that folks are recognizing is that going to a community college doesn't mean you're just going to do a 2-year associate's degree. Going to a community college could be the start. And so maybe you've just graduated from high school and you didn't get into the school of your dreams. And so you're going to go work on your associates. Community colleges is one of the things I've seen that's fascinating, and it's really grown over the last 2 years, is the amount of articulation agreements that are in place. And so what this is someone who starts a cybersecurity program at Fayetteville Tech knows that there's an articulation agreement with colleges all over the state, and gives them the ability to launch from a community college into a 4-year degree, but start at a lower cost option. So I think it's a perfect way to get it. We tell people this is not, when you come to a community college, this is not something to just come in, finish a program, get that certificate, and then move on. We like to think that we're providing a pathway to lifelong learning. We expect that people will continue to come back, move on to 4-year degrees and beyond. And the good thing is, here in North Carolina, they've got a lot of options.
So you work closely in your role with the community college system. You work with businesses to provide education and training throughout the state. What kind of trends are you seeing?
Well, one thing that is interesting is the world of economic development has become very, very data-driven. And that's something that's been a trend, I would say, for the last 15 years or so. And so businesses, when they're looking at, they've got a lot of choices. They're looking at a variety of locations just here in the Southeast U.S. They're looking at population data. They're looking at how many people are finishing with an associate's degree, how many people are finishing with university degrees. They're looking at how many certificates exist here. So it's an extremely competitive business. And what we know is, not only does a business need to know, so, Amazon had made a major announcement in Richmond County this week. They know that 500 employees is something that they know the data shows them that it is going to be, that there is potential to hire those 500. They also know that those 500 can get the training they need from the local community college. And so more and more, I would say, I guess one of the terms I've kicked around with others is that workforce is infrastructure. Any business coming in needs the road, they need the utilities, they need their water, they need their sewer, they need all these things. They also can't do it without workforce. And data centers are interesting. And so the Amazon project, I think, was very timely, because this is certainly something that's going to be much bigger than just a typical data center that we would see, though, where we typically don't see a lot of jobs. In this situation, we are, with all the cloud computing, cloud infrastructure that's going to be stood up there. There's a lot of work that's happening. They need to know that they've got the workforce, or the project simply won't work. And the good news is, we're going to be backing them every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, how much are you able to just dial up that workforce? I mean, if you're talking about building a road or building sewer, like you can sort of see a path toward getting that done. You bring in some construction company, you build the road. But it seems like workforce is not, I mean, the lead time on that seems like it would be a little bit longer. I mean, how do you go about doing that?
No, it is. It's something that we have to continue to work on. And I would say it's one of the reasons why we've seen increased interest in things like a variety of different work-based learning programs and apprenticeship in particular. And so here in North Carolina, we saw over the last fiscal year, we saw the number of registered apprentices essentially doubled. And it's one of those things that just continues to increase. The governor signed an executive order about a month and a half ago, encouraging folks like me and members of the North Carolina Department of Commerce and others to really do what we can to increase that pipeline, because we know that pipeline's got to be there. I would say here in North Carolina, we're fortunate. We're fortunate in terms of the net in-migration of population that's coming here. We continue to grow very rapidly. Not everywhere in the state. There are certainly rural communities that struggle to grow. But those are the things we've got to see. We've got to see that the potential workforce, And I would say, I'll divert just a little bit here and say that in addition to all those folks who are moving in, which would certainly help us meet some of those job requirements, but the people who aren't employed and getting through to different communities. So getting through to the IDD community, folks with intellectual disabilities, folks who are coming out of the military, folks in rural parts of the state. We got to continue to do what we do to let those people know that these opportunities are there, because many of them don't know that those opportunities are there, or they don't know what the pathway is. And I think the community college plays a really important role there.
Okay, so what are the hot fields? I know you mentioned, data centers, Amazon's announcement in early June that it's building a $10 billion data center in Richmond County, which is about, it's east of Charlotte, outside of Charlotte. I mean, kind of on the way to the beach, I guess. I mean, and then you have a lot of other data centers. I know in the, the Hickory area, I know west of Charlotte, probably other parts of the state as well. That seems like a big one. But what are the specific fields that in the community college system you're saying, wow, we really need to train up for this? Here's what's coming. Here's what lies ahead.
So it's funny. In some ways, these were things that we would have said a couple of years ago. But overall, if we were just to look at things like manufacturing or advanced manufacturing, as we reshore industry here, we're not bringing T-shirt manufacturers here. We're bringing advanced manufacturing back. So we're bringing people who are in very high-tech logistics. We're bringing in people who are certainly the aviation industry is one that's spiking, and life sciences. But all of those continue to grow. But the one thing that many of them have in common is mechatronic technicians. And so everything is highly automated. So as those machines go down, we need someone very qualified to get them up and running quickly. We need data analysts and folks who are involved in helping really understand how to make some of those manufacturing facilities even more productive. It's much more data driven than it ever was. CNC machinists, welders, those are things that we continue to see significant demand for. And it's just that's something that's been a running trend for the last 10 years or so. One really interesting area, though, I've seen, and again, it is a tie to apprenticeship, but it's really something that what's interesting about it for me is it's really crossing industry. So yes, cybersecurity, very important for manufacturers, but it's also very important for obviously IT businesses, life science businesses, hospitals. They're all looking for cybersecurity specialists. And folks know that you can bring a consultant in who can help you get in shape for your next DoD bid. But to have somebody on staff, that's something that is becoming more and more viewed as a bit of a requirement for businesses. And so these are the things that continue to grow. So as these high-tech businesses come back here and the ones that are here continue to grow, we're going to see even more demand.
How much do you worry that, the skills that you're training for today and that are on the immediate horizon, just with the advance of technology, and there's a lot of talk about AI, are the skills that you all are teaching, are they going to be outdated at some point? I mean, I just think, a few years ago, it was like, okay, everybody, you could learn to code because that's the future. Now it's like AI is coming for all the coding jobs. I mean, how much of this are skills that are going to endure, and how much is, skills that, hey, maybe in a few years you need to kind of re-up what you got?
The truth is the skills gap will continue to widen in certain areas, especially in regard to technology. I also think the skills gap is widening in some ways due to some societal issues. So as an example of that, I would tell you that a lot of manufacturers are bringing us in now to provide leadership training and helping people with conflict resolution and things like that, because just based on some of the shifts we've seen in society, that skill set isn't always there. And I'm not making any digs at any specific generations, but really that is something that continues to grow. And so our job is to get people to understand that there are resources out there that can help you identify and deal with those skills gaps. But what we need from businesses is the understanding, and the individuals working at businesses, that this is a lifelong thing. And, what you're doing today is going to be very different from what you're doing 2 years from now. And so we've got to prepare to continue to pivot and get better and reskill and build that way. What I can tell you is it is, in terms of the things that keep me up at night, knowing that the number of retirements that we're seeing, happen statewide, even here at a state agency like the community college system. It's one of those things that we need to address. And so We need more people, and we need even higher skilled people. And so I think the community colleges are in a very good place to address some of that. But I will say it's something that, and I work with a lot of folks on a national basis, other states that is, to help them address things. And it's a challenge that's happening everywhere. And so I think continuing to stay on top of, whatever these trends are as they arise, we will be in a really good place to address some of them, like the leadership training. But AI is one of those things that I think, whether it's the Department of Public Instruction, the UNC system, or here at the community college system, we're all working on our strategies to address that because we know how impactful it's going to be.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast is presented by Childcare Search, Charlotte's trusted childcare guidance for families. Visit findchildcarenc.org or call 1-888-600-1685 to talk to a childcare navigator today. Yeah, I think that's a good point on the leadership and some of the soft skills. I've heard that as well, that there's a lot of demand for that. I mean, that's something that really, I think that's something I would hope that's kind of sticks with you, for a lifetime. But yeah, I mean, when you talk to employers, I mean, one of the things it seems like they've been saying for a long time is this, this worker shortage, the need for workers, not the need for qualified workers that can do the job that they need them to do. How do we get more of those workers? Is it even possible? I mean, that's, I think, some of what is driving some of the technology is this, well, we don't have enough workers, so can we automate some of this away? I know there's a lot of anxiety about that in some quarters, but is there anything more we can do to get more human workers matched up with businesses?
I would say, one thing that is certainly happening in different degrees all over the state is engagement with students at even younger ages. And so it's one of those things that I will tell you, if I had a magic wand and could make anything available, I would ensure that every high school in the state had some form of registered apprenticeship program, or at least was capable of explaining to students, here are some of the opportunities that are out there for you. Our customized training program that the community college system offers is fantastic, but that's when a business is coming in, they're making a commitment to create a number of jobs, and we're going to make sure they have the training they need. But to your point, to make sure that we're getting more people in there, I think we have to reach deeper and deeper into the K through 12 system to get people to understand. And something we've both heard, I'm sure you've heard this as well, that there's still grandparents and parents who have that hesitance to allow one of their children. They think the 4-year path is still the way. They don't want one of their grandchildren or children to go to work in a manufacturing facility because of their memories of what manufacturing was back in the 70s and 80s. But so much of that has changed.
Yeah.
So very different today. And so what I will tell you is businesses are committed. Businesses understand they need to become more engaged. They can't just put up the factory out in the middle of a field and expect that everybody's going to know what goes on there. I will tell you, I'm one of those people who I think I end up boring a lot of people, because anybody who's in the car with me, when I drive from Raleigh to Charlotte, when I get to the Mebane area, I point over at the Morinaga plant and I tell people, hey, those high chew candies you love, they're made right there. And that's something that more people need to know those things. They need to know these types of things that are going on statewide. And so the smart businesses are engaged. And I would say in Charlotte, for example, through the work of Central Piedmont Community College, through the customized training program, and through Apprenticeship 2000, they're engaged with business and helping people understand what's there. We just need to do more of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about manufacturing and people's conceptions of manufacturing. I do think there's still, among some folks, probably in the older generations, this idea that, when you're talking about manufacturing, you're talking about some, Norma Ray textile plant or something with, hundreds and hundreds of workers, I don't know, sewing or whatever. I mean, I used to cover manufacturing for the Charlotte Observer back in the early 2000s. And this was right when it was when all the textile jobs were but continuing to go in great numbers overseas. Furniture was starting to go the same way. And yes, there were a lot. If you look at manufacturing employment, it really fell off a cliff in those years. Now, in the last 10 or 15 years, it's stabilized pretty much. I mean, it's kind of held its ground, and that's because you usually go to these factories now, and there's nobody in the factories almost. I mean, you walk around and it's machine. Yes, you have people maintaining the machines, but it's all computer assisted. These are high tech jobs. These are not low skilled jobs by any stretch of the imagination, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, I just think it's interesting, that if the word can get out that hey, these are kind of jobs of the future. There's been a lot of talk when it relates to manufacturing lately about wanting to increase U.S. domestic manufacturing, and you're seeing these tariffs play out in a number of ways, and you've seen maybe some signs. Are you seeing any of that yet? I mean, I know we've seen some announcements of plants kind of here and there. What are you seeing as far as manufacturing starting up in North Carolina?
So what I would say is, typically we're any of these significant projects that we might see here in the state are either new businesses coming in or existing businesses expanding. I would say it feels like the existing businesses are maybe keeping the cards a little tighter to the vest. I think they're slowing down a little bit. I think, some of those, and part of it is the cost of a variety of things. It is kind of fascinating to see the world that they live in and how that's changed. And so folks really are, I think it comes down to risk mitigation. And so they're, rather than stick our neck out and make a significant expansion this year, maybe we'll hold off. But there are others who are looking at this as an opportunity and looking at this as, they know that supply chain disruptions during the pandemic highlighted the fragility of things internationally. And so they're looking to stabilize things. They're looking for, and I would say they're looking to create a strong workforce, which they know they can find here in the U.S. to act as a insurance policy against any disruptions that may take place. There are things happening all over the planet that make the U.S. look like a very good, stable opportunity. Chris Chung and the EDP&C team and Secretary Lee Lilly were up in D.C. recently for the Select USA conference, and I know that's one that North Carolina sees a lot of interest from folks from all over the world. And so typically, I would say 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 projects that are looking at North Carolina have some level of foreign direct investment attached to them. And so we're seeing more and more interest, but some of those existing businesses here in the state may be slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, is that because of supply chain types of issues where they have inputs from somewhere and they're just not really sure? Or is that, the one thing you do hear about is this uncertainty with the tariffs and the costs and the economy and things like that. Is that what it is? Is that what you're hearing?
I think maybe it's a little bit more that they're just not sure. They don't know what will come out of the next tweet. They don't know what will happen from the next steel tariff. And so they're just kind of holding on. Let's hold on, see how things pan out, and we'll wait 6 months, we'll wait a year and revisit. I think that's kind of where the mindset seems to be.
Yeah, it does seem like, the other side of it, though, like you say, there are a lot of companies looking to move here. And I know North Carolina always likes to tout its high rankings in the I forget which magazine it is, but, the best place to do business or best place to move your business or things like that. And I do think you have a lot of companies kind of scouting things, looking around. It seems like the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area has kind of got a lot of that lately. How do you see economic development projects playing out across the state? Are there particular regions that you're seeing a lot of activity and others maybe not so much? How do you see that breaking down?
What I would have said at the beginning of the year, we were still seeing significant projects and deal flow in some of our urban settings. And so certainly Raleigh, Greensboro, maybe to a lesser degree, Wilmington and Asheville, but certainly Charlotte as well. And that continued to play out. Here in the Research Triangle, for example, life science business, we continue to increase the number of projects here. And so Genentech was one that announced at Select USA. And so we continue to see major investments continue to come in. Now, what was interesting is, they're at the same time, we do continue to see some really interesting opportunities popping up in what I would say some are really well-prepared rural communities. And so 2 that I would call out, you mentioned Richmond County. So the folks down in Richmond County shared that particular industrial site that Amazon is going to develop is one that they had 47 different site visits out to that site. And so it takes time. It's got to be built. The Duke Energy team had been working that. The local economic developer had been working that. There's a whole wide variety of folks that brought that around. It takes time to get these things to develop. Wayne County has actually seen some really good activity recently as well. And so Wayne County saw two major announcements. One of them was the largest announcement they've ever seen in the county's history.
And I'm sorry, where Wayne County is where exactly?
So Wayne County is it's Goldsboro is the big city in Wayne County, but it's about an hour east of Raleigh. And then, we have seen some good projects in, Hickory continues to see good projects. Asheville saw, not only did they see the Pratt & Whitney project a few years back, but Pratt & Whitney did an expansion. They moved to phase 2 of that project last year. And so all of these things are good signs. What worries me, though, is that there are a lot of communities that really just aren't prepared for the next big economic development opportunity. I know that we've seen a lot of turnover within the economic development community in the northwest of the state. Same with the northeast of the state, and even the Charlotte region. There's been turnover in Union County and Cleveland County and Cabarrus County, and so that's, folks. Some of that is cyclical. Those are things.
Yeah, and I would say in Charlotte too, there's been a little bit of this sort of who's in charge here. Is it the city? Is it the business alliance? Who's running the show? I mean, a few years ago they used to have a regional, board, and then they collapsed them. So there's been a little bit of turnover there too, even in Charlotte.
Yep. And so at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that when these business opportunities call, and when these people are ready to come down and look at a property, that somebody's there to answer the phone. I mean, Donnie Hicks in Gaston County, I think, is a fantastic example of someone with his breadth of experience and what he's done. And I will tell you, he has seen economic cycles. He's seen boom and bust. And the good news is, the last couple of years have been more of the boom times. And so he's seeing things spill over from the Charlotte community over into Gaston County, and they've been extremely busy. So we're thrilled to see that activity. And I will tell you, Gaston College is, when it comes to our customized training program, that is the number 2 program in the state. And Gaston College is absolutely, as they say in baseball, tearing the cover off the ball when it comes to customized training. And you can drive by their facility in Belmont in the middle of the night, and you'll see people who are on the 3rd shift who are there at the college doing training. And so those are good signs. But yeah, then we do have some other communities where they're struggling with population, they're struggling with workforce, they're struggling to attract industry. And so we've got our work cut out for us. And there are things that we can do in those communities. I think it really starts with leadership. We've got to have really good local leadership there who have a vision and can build things out. And sometimes it may start with something as simple as a downtown revitalization program. If we can, and again, that's another way that the community college system can help. We've got a network of small business centers that are in each of our 58 colleges. So we can help those local business owners understand what it's going to take to open a business, how to apply for a grant or a loan and get things off the ground. Because if that small rural community has what looks like vibrant downtown, or at least signs of life in terms of local small businesses, that tells people there's something happening here. But you drive through the downtown and you see most of the businesses boarded up, it tells you where things are trending.
John, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Tony, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Okay, that's a wrap. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is produced by Lindsay Banks. This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is presented by Child Care Search, helping families find safe, quality child care with free referrals and support every step of the way. Visit findchildcarenc.org.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.